The first panel is titled Digitalise to Decarbonise. This panel will explore promising digital, data technology, and energy efficiency solutions and the business case for the adoption of these solutions for the decarbonization of the maritime sector. The panel will also delve into the need to integrate digitalization and energy efficiency solutions with data collection and analysis for informed decision-making and explore the need for the workforce to be equipped as the industry becomes more reliant on digitalization. This session's moderator is Mr. Koh Yong Ping, Chief Executive of Bureau Veritas Marine and Offshore Singapore. Mr. Koh, please. Joining Mr. Koh on the panel are the following distinguished speakers. May I invite them to join us on stage, please. Mr. Peter Schellenberger, Director and Founder of Novamaxis. Mr. Ray Meng Tiang, Director of the China Classification Society Digital Transformation Office. Professor Chan Eng Soon, Chief Executive Officer of the Technology Center for Offshore and Marine Singapore. Mr. Gavin Allwright, Secretary General of the International Windship Association. And Ms. Susanna Germino, Chief Sustainability and Energy Transition Officer of Swire Shipping and Swire Bulk. To post your questions to the panelists, please use the QR codes on the screens behind me. To open the session, I would like to welcome His Excellency Mr. Francis Zachariah, Secretary General of AELA, to deliver his introductory remarks. Secretary General, please. Anywhere you like.
Hello. Thank you very much, and welcome to this morning and afternoon session where we will focus on accelerating digitalization and decarbonization. And I have the honor to make some introductory remarks before we step into the panel discussion here. But before that, I would like to thank my good friends and colleagues of the MPA for organizing this amazing week. I think it's my fourth Singapore Maritime Week, and it's always fantastic. And I cannot imagine what a challenge it must be to organize this every year. It's a fantastic job you're doing, and I want to thank all of you in front of the screens and behind the screens. You're so kind and guiding all of us here. It's a job well done. Thank you very much. So last year, exactly in my position now, was Mr. Roger Holm from Wärtsilä. And he showed this slide as the first one in his presentation. And the message was that ships operators must act quickly to meet upcoming emission targets. At the same time, they must do this while remaining profitable. And as we discussed Monday in the panel as well, that this is possible actually to have a good business case while you are also sustainable here in the future. But we need to speed up. 2050 is just around the corner. And even if Mr. Arsenio Dominguez from IMO is very optimistic, we also heard from Mr. Gold that there are some serious challenges ahead. In AELA, we have two goals. The first one is that marine aids navigation on a very global scale are developed and harmonized through international cooperation and the provision of standards. And please focus on developed and harmonized because I think these two things are key to us succeeding with the 2050 emission goals. To your left, you have a picture of development And I think development and innovation will solve the problems of the globe. I'm a little bit more pessimistic when it comes to changing people's behavior, but I think innovation will solve the problem. I really hope so. And development and innovation are so important and key to our success. To your right is a picture of harmonization, or maybe something that is not harmonized very well, because I could not charge my computer when I arrived here in Singapore. So we think in Ayala that harmonization is really, really important and actually very, very complicated to achieve. But I will come back to that. Luckily, there are many levers to decarbonize. We have heard about them Monday, Tuesday, and today as well. And that's very promising that we have all these projects. Believe it or not, but we can still improve the vessel design. It's still possible to save fossil fuel by innovating on the ship's design. The power assistance, very interesting. Wind energy, Gavin will tell us much more about that in a little while. But very, very interesting to come back to sails and save energy that way. And then, of course, we have alternative fuels. We heard about that a lot. That can solve the problem 100%, of course, fuel without carbon in the future, but it's very complicated and lots of investment, and it's not that easy. And then we have all the digital solutions, routing operations, just-in-time arrival, efficiency in terminals. We saw Mr. Tao giving examples of that, energy management on board the ship and ashore, and autonomous navigation systems. We had some very important conclusions about autonomy. It does not mean unmanned. A recent study in Ayala suggests that there will not be unmanned big ships in the next 20-25 years, or at least not very many. So it's not unmanned, it's autonomous, or autonomy will be driven in this. And it's suggested that more than 38% fossil fuel can be saved using these digital solutions. So they are absolutely necessary for us to succeed. Digitalization and decarbonization has become interdependent major trends for the shipping sector, shipping industry, and I guess that's why it's the subject for this conference. So when we turn to harmonization, as I said, we believe this is key to success. At least for the digital solutions, we need to harmonize. We need to have global harmonized solutions in a global sector like shipping is. It's a global industry. And we see lots of local solutions and sometimes regional solutions that are fantastic, but they are not globally harmonized. And we need global harmonized solutions. Think about aviation. They have been very, very successful. When my flight took off in Paris, I'm sure it was already on the screen more or less in Singapore. We need to adapt some of these global harmonized solutions. The Sesame project here in the Strait of Malacca in Singapore is a fantastic project, but it is regional. It does not speak to other amazing projects around the world. And we would like to change that, at least in Ayala. It's very important. How do we do that? It's complicated. We need to cooperate much better in the international organizations. And it is a job of the IMO on a very high scale to coordinate this harmonization. And you know, there's a little joke saying that everybody wants harmonization, but nobody wants to be harmonized. But I assure you that in Ayala, we love to be harmonized. We are ready to be harmonized. And we will do everything we can to input our technological knowledge into the IMO in order to harmonize these important solutions. As you might know, Ayala is very soon changing status from NGO to an intergovernmental organization based on a convention that was finalized in Kuala Lumpur in 2020. We only miss 2 more ratifications, and they are coming very soon, we know that. And then the convention will enter into force, and IALA will be an IGO here in the near future. And that will create, of course, a stronger organization and more able to harmonize air navigation solutions. And Singapore MPA, again, has been extremely generous, and they will invite many of you to the first General Assembly of IALA as an IGO, a stronger IALA that can assist our members in a safer, more efficient and more resilient shipping sector. So with these words, thank you very much, and I will now leave you in the capable hands of Yongping. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francis, for the enlightening speech. The International Maritime Organization has set clear decarbonization target for 2030, 2040, 2050. The numbers are well known to us, and I will not belabor those numbers. It is also heartening to know that there are many ongoing international, regional R&Ds, collaborations, proof of concepts on the cleaner alternative fuels. But in my view, with 99% of the global in-service fleet still heavily reliant on fossil fuel, I think the uptake of cleaner fuel is still in the early stage for mass adoption. But on an optimistic note, approximately 20 to 22% of the new building order book have ships that will be built and delivered to operate on cleaner fuels. So that is on a positive note. Today we are into the 3rd day of the Singapore Maritime Week, and really a big shout out to MPA for bringing like-minded individuals, organizations, member states representatives. I was told there are 77 countries that are represented here. So during tea breaks, the lunch breaks, willingly, intentionally or unintentionally, I've heard a number of conversations really talking about what is going to be the next cleaner fuel. I have not heard any discussion about, or discussion starting about how smart will be your vessel be? What level of automation or digitalization do you intend to incorporate in your next projects? So that set me wondering, that was on Monday, yeah? Okay, has our quest for low carbon or zero carbon shipping caused the exploitation of digitalization and technology to be taken a backseat? Even on the first day, questions were put forth to the panel of minister as well as the SecGen on what will likely be the next silver bullet or bullets of the fuel of the future. 2 words that have been constantly echoing in the ballroom 406 as well as exhibition hall. If you can't remember anything from the SMW, it will be digitalization, 2 words, and decarbonization. Digitalization and decarbonizations are both transformative forces that will shape the shipping industry in the next 2 decades plus. So yesterday, there were a lot of speakers and experts that spoke about digitalization and various technologies. When we talk about digital technologies, this includes such as AI, machine learning, sensing technologies, IoTs, including performance-improving platforms such as digital twins, geospatial intelligence, as well as precise satellite routing that can help in timely, precise decision-making. By tapping on a digital ecospace, vessels can integrate applications, data models, and leverage on digital tools to unlock the power of advanced predictive analysis for maintenance, operations, and navigation. combined, I am of the opinion that digitalization and technology can improve the predictability, reliability, the safety, as well as the efficiency of shipping, thereby reducing costs. There is no doubt that we will eventually switch to cleaner fuel. The initial take-up cost will be high. The question then for my panelists would be, can we leverage on digitalization to get ahead of decarbonization? I will now turn to my learned panelists to get their views. Okay, my first question would be, I will organize the panel into two parts. We talk about the relevance of digitalization and then how do we handle data. The first question would be to Prof. Chan. Prof. Chan, as the National R&D Center dedicated to the marine and offshore, you are heavily invested in technologies and digitalization, such as digital twins for your Med Ocean, where you model the Singapore water on the Med Ocean data. Can you share some of the programs that you have for the benefits of our audience? Prof. Chan?
Sure. Perhaps I will start by elaborating a bit what we meant by digital twins. Because to different researchers and stakeholders, it could mean quite different thing altogether. So for us, it's about twinning the real world. And to twin the real world, we want to take it to the extent that if a vessel is going to a starboard, the twin will point in the same direction. And to do that, we have to understand that whatever numerical models or AI or data-driven engines that we use, it's never that perfect. And so this is where, in order to come up with a good digital twin, you have to really embrace sensing and to do the simulation of information in real time. And it's only through that we could really get as close as possible to a real world. So for us, in the research development, we are basically pushing that boundaries. Basically, the combination of sensing, data assimilation, and the modeling. And of course, with the assumption that whatever models we use are fit for purpose. And so with that, then the question is, how could we harness that capability? And that again is where we thought that even as we operate, we should explore the possibility of learning as we operate. So if you have a digital twin that's really doing its best to mimic the real world operation in real time, there will still be deviations. And question is, could we learn from that deviation? And I think this is through this effort that then we could really harness the potential of taking the technology even further and to empower us in our decision making. So that's one example of how we are pushing the boundaries. And at the same time, over the past few days, there has been quite a bit of mention of autonomous systems. So when it comes to autonomous vessels or solutions, we don't look at it as just a solution for pure autonomous operations. We look at it as a somewhat a very intelligent or smart solution that should certainly be in place even with human on board and human in the loop. And I say this because actually moving forward, this is where we could really optimize a lot further, because the decision making is going to be the combination of the human and machine put together. And so this is another area that I thought is very exciting. And in R&D, we're basically looking at real-world problems and in partnership with the stakeholders, trying to move those boundaries.
Thank you, Prof. Chan. It's heartening to know that you are looking at real-world problem, not purely from the academic perspective. Mr. Yu, I will put from CCS, I'll put you on standby. Before let me pose the question to Susanna. From the ship owner's perspective, okay, how do you evaluate the uptake of digitalization and technologies to reduce emission vis-a-vis, let's say, cleaner fuels?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to MPA for the invitation to speak today. I would like to first explain a little bit about the fleet that Swire Shipping and Swire Bulk has. Swire Shipping is a liner company that operates basically mainly in the Pacific. It has about 40 vessels and mainly owned. Swire Bulk is a dry bulk operator that operates worldwide. We operate about 150 vessels, of which 20 are ours. So we have two very different fleets, one in container, medium size, and one in bulk, medium size, that has both owned and operate. That creates a new level of challenges. Well, I was looking at it as an engineer, I find that, you have to have data, you have to collect data to establish a baseline. Otherwise, how can you look at improvements? And then I looked at what we are doing today, and we are always collecting data and have been for a very large number of years. It's just how are we using it? And now we have better opportunities of looking at it. So currently, we obviously are using data to monitor the vessel's use of energy and optimizing the vessel's conditions. We are optimizing voyage performance by having data about weather and optimizing routing. We're also optimizing our vessel planning and minimize port stays by monitoring port and cargo activities. We also now, with all of the importance of, we realize that it is really important to have some of the information related to decarbonization in some of the simulators and systems that we have already. So it needs to be integrated. So one of the projects that we are working at the moment is allowing, especially in the liner trades and with network optimization, to have CII and EOI calculators so we can actually monitor and look at what the impact would be if we change, cut the port, increase speed, decrease speed, and the variance of cargo. We are also looking, obviously, in Swire Bulk, we found at the end of every voyage, we return to our clients our EOI report, and we would like to do the same in Swire Shipping by the end of the year. And this is not estimates, and it is actual emissions that we would like to present to our clients. So, and finally, we also look at vessel performance, commercial trends data to analyze what our future fleet will look like. So, these are some of the areas that we use to decarbonize too.
Thank you, Susanna. Okay, over to you, Mr. Yue. The Chinese Classification Society, I'm aware that you have invested in various technologies, worked with institutions. You have heard from Prof. Chan, you have heard from our owner-operator, Susanna. Can you tell me, share with the audience some of the programs and initiatives on smart technology from a classification perspective? Mr. Yue?
Okay. As a classification society, I think the most concerned issue is always for safety. And we are working on new methodologies and tools on both smart and decarbonization technologies to make sure they're ready to be applied on ships safely. For example, we've established a virtual testing system for smart navigation, which could set comprehensive testing conditions to test whether the smart navigation system gave their decisions correctly and to avoid collision in any circumstances is related to safety issues. And also, we are continuously working on this system to establish functional testing of smart navigations, such as whether the decision is smart enough to really save the energy. We are also trying to establish comprehensive testing infrastructures in distributed and virtual physical combined manners. for the testing of equipment and the complex system for both alternative fuels and the smart ships. And of course, digital simulation is the foundation of that system. As just Mr. Chang said, the benchmark and adjustment for that simulation model, the accuracy for that is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yue. At this point, before I come to Peter, I would like to remind the audience, if you have questions, please scan the Slido code and post your questions, and then we will find time to answer it. Okay, over to you, Peter. You have been a veteran of the industry for more than 3 decades. You have seen how the industry transformed. Tell me, I know you are not a person that fears technology and digitalization. How do you see this changing the maritime industry? Is there a business case for this? Peter?
The business case undoubtedly is huge. There is an estimate, don't know where it came from, but that the decarbonization potential business is 2.4 trillion. Yeah, it's huge, of course. The stakeholders are financial institutions, class societies, ship owners, charterers, freight owners, and digital developers. The question is, of course, in this whole ecosystem, how do they share also the duties and the organizational needs, right? You have the owners, the charterers, the cargo interests, and these are all things that are only now developing, of course. But we have a huge task in front of us. Shipping has gained about 30% efficiency since 2008. And I don't think it's very much, actually. The emissions are still the same now because there was a concurrent increase in trade volumes. So in order to achieve the 2030 targets, we have to use at least 10% more green fuels and have to find another 30% increase in efficiency, so which basically shows that the big task ahead of us. And first of all, quick congrats to Singapore to be again the leading place in maritime, and this is why this is a perfect test bed here, and all the stakeholders are here to discuss and convert buzzwords into action. It all sounds so beautiful, blockchain and AI and so on, but the question for us is, and this industry is pretty simple very much when it comes to commercialization of things. The problem statements have to be very clear, but also the solutions have to be explainable, and there has to be a value creation, of course. And that is a real problem because we see for a lot of the various approaches that we have to take, many providers that are now coming forward and suggesting solutions in many different areas. If we come back to the owners and the managers that are later on the users of this, there's a big problem, of competency within, because it's all new for most people. So the large companies have a very good infrastructure, and they have people that are used to analyzing this, like the lady sitting with us on the panel. But let's not forget the 70% of the addressable fleets that have less than 15 vessels. They have an issue in competency and must be confused quite often. What is the right pathway? Because when we saw first that you can save up to 38% with a combined series of measures, then how do you apply it? What does it cost? What do I get from it? That quantification is not so easy, actually. And I think a lot of companies are kind of overwhelmed, and hopefully we find easy answers, or more easy answers, that there's a little bit of a guide. I think what we are looking for is use cases that show us it can be done. So just to name one, there was a mention just 2 weeks ago where we had an autonomous navigation system that was a Hyundai product, Avicus, delivered a 15% fuel reduction in sea trials, right, on a 325,000 ton VLOC from Singapore to Brazil. If you have a concrete thing that is in front of you, that helps a lot. Because if you cluster our industry, what you could say is that 10% of the owners and managers are very much willing to look into the future, to put their money where their mouth is, invest in things that are not yet proven. And then by estimation, you have another 10% or 15% eventually of owners and managers that are willing to follow a proven concept. But that shows you, it gives you the bigger part, more than 2/3 of the market, sitting there waiting for others to lead, and mostly to do only what is really necessary in terms of what they're forced to do, right? So lowest possible expenditure as well. So that's part of the problem.
Thank you, Peter. It is heartening to know that you have also acknowledged the knowledge gap of the 70% of the shipping companies, as particularly those with smaller fleet, 15 or less, fewer than 15 vessels. But I understand there is a panel, there is a session on Friday on marine talent. So stay around and stay plugged into the Friday session.
If I could just add one more thing, and it came in the introduction. Standardization is very important, right? Because we need a level playing field, we need a baseline to start all our projects. And so this is why I'm very glad that I see the industry coming together. Also, data sharing has now been defined. And for example, a Smart Maritime Network is looking at various areas, for example, the standardized Noon report, an ISO standard for machinery protocols, or also a KYC process for supplier accreditation in terms of ESG necessities. Only if the industry comes together, that means the suppliers and the users later on, and finds definitions, then this whole ecosystem of startups, mature service providers, can work with those tools and communicate in a common language, which I think is the basis of a successful future.
Okay, Peter, since you have moved to the part about data standardization and harmonization, Francis spoke about everybody wants harmonization, but nobody wants to be harmonized. Maybe I skip to the other end, Susanna. You collect lots of data, whether Noon report, maintenance, repair, failure reports. Yeah. So on the data part on standardization, harmonization, what is your quick take on it? Few words.
It's one of my key points, actually, is there's a very large number of potential digital technologies that could be adopted if there was a standard way of collecting data from the ship. What is happening nowadays is that each technology that you want to try or each platform that you're looking at, you will have a new set of collection of data that will need the manual input from the crew. So if you want to try 4 or 5, the crew will have to repeat the same information 4 or 5 times. And I think that this is such an opportunity there's such an opportunity for improvement. There should be one way to collect data from the ships that is equal for all platforms, and all of the platforms would then use that data in the way that they want to cut, slice, or add. But this is for the benefit of also ship owners that will be much freer to try new technologies, because they would not be so concerned about the work level with the crews on board.
Okay, yes. For shipping, one of the biggest opportunities that we have is to use the data we already have. There are lots of interesting data, okay? They are not being really used in a meaningful way. They are either dying in Excels or printed in, stuck in email boxes. So data is the fuel for digitalization. And it really promotes collaboration. So if we can take that effort to make use of the data we gather, we analyze them and we understand them, then they can be harnessed for decision making. Yeah. So Gavin, maybe over to you. We understand. Okay, let me try to get my numbers right. I think there are about 39 vessels fitted with wind installed propulsion means, and more or less 9 vessels or 11 vessels that have wind-ready propulsion. Okay. How do you see digitalization technologies help to promote wind, to see wind as a credible power source? And do you see the data collected from those operating fleet being fed into the system to improve the uptake. Kevin?
Yeah, thank you. And yes, those numbers are correct. Yeah, 39
Thank you.
installed and 11 win ready. And actually, that's 3 times more than we've had 3 times more installations this year than we did last year. So it's really starting to move forward. And thank you for the question as well, because you highlighted that it's an energy source. Now, there's often a misinterpretation of what wind is going to do. As an energy efficiency measure, no. It's actually an energy source. It's an energy provision. It's a fuel, a direct renewable energy fuel, if you like. So I appreciate that. Now, the way that digitalization is actually impacting or encouraging and developing wind is threefold. One is around the optimization of the technologies themselves. So we're seeing a lot of that data from those demonstrators, and I think the real life data coming back into the system, coming back into those digital twins, that's incredibly important for us to optimize. And we're seeing really step changes in a 5,000-year-old energy source or a 5,000-year-old technology basket is going through leaps and bounds of development in the materials, in the way the systems are working, and in the optimization of the materials being used. The second area is around the automation. And what we need to change, or the perception that is changing, is we don't have hundreds of guys up in the rigging smoking pipes with eye patches on. We're talking about 21st century solutions for a 21st century problem. And that automation, sensors on the systems, auto reefing, distance monitoring of those systems allows us to be predictive in maintenance, but also, again, that information is feeding back into the operation of the systems. And the final area, and I'm only touching very, very surface-wise, is around the optimization of the operations of the systems. So we've already heard and quite familiar with routing, but wind routing, we can pretty much double the percentages that you see, say, on a retrofit where you're talking 5 to 20%. If you start operating that vessel in an optimized way, more as a wind vessel, where you're motoring 50 nautical miles to the south to catch those trade winds, to catch those green corridors of wind, which we've had for, since we've sailed across the oceans. That's an incredibly important area that digitalization and data can actually provide. If we then link that to weather forecasting and the sophisticated space services that we have, and even putting LiDAR onto the vessels so we can map out the wind coming into the vessel and optimize the system in real time, then we're starting to see some really exciting numbers.
Thank you, Gavin. Maybe over to you, Prof. Chan. So Gavin has spoke about the improvements, 5,000-year technology. How can TCOMs really help maybe to validate some of the emission savings or further optimize through digital twins that you spoke about? Your take on this from the R&D perspective?
So, what is perhaps a standard routine is to make good use of the models to not just validate the concepts, but also to explore how we could learn from the simulations and to push it further. Because data that we collect is always discrete in time and space, and through the models you could actually see a lot more. And then through the models we could start to explore by tweaking the design and so on. And that allows us to rethink how we, not just how we design and build, but also how we operate. And so in that sense, I believe many groups in the world are doing that. I really like the earlier point about catching the winds, and I would like to add that the same can be said about catching the tidal currents. All of us know that you burn a lot more energy to go against currents, but you can gain a lot more by sailing with the currents. So there's really a great opportunity out there if we have the predictability of that operating environment. It really helps a lot.
I guess this is where your digital Med Ocean Twin comes into play for the local water. Gavin, a question just came in. Let me read. Does the adoption of wind-assisted propulsion require some other operational changes to emission management and voyage optimization? I guess you partially answered that. Maybe you want to reiterate that again? Any changes on operational front and also voyage optimization? Kevin?
You've got a choice to make. You can run your vessel completely as a motor vessel with wind put on board. That will help. With again 5 to 20% of energy provision can be delivered there. Now, if you do make operational changes, maybe you're reducing your speed, just-in-time arrivals means that actually you can power down and increase the percentage of the energy provided by wind. You can weather route for that. So it's really, it starts to be choices, and we've got to remember that when we look at the percentages on a vessel as well, we're talking about the end result. But if we look at that total, if you like, total cost of ownership, you're using an energy source that's also has no mining, refining, transporting, bunkering, or storage on board. So if we factor all of those aspects in, you're actually using an energy source that's delivered at the point of use, and you're not using your propeller as well. So in that case, things like underwater radiated noise can be reduced. So there are choices that we make if you want to optimize further, if you want to get more energy from it, then you can make operational changes that will deliver that.
Okay, Kevin, hold on to the mic. Okay, you mentioned the uptake of wind, ship fitted with wind propulsion technology has increased. Do you really actively reach out to these ship owner operators on data, operation data, and do you feel a sense of reluctance on them sharing it? So take that question. Peter, I also asked you the similar question from business consultancy perspective. Gavin?
So data sharing, yeah. So I'm just going to start with a little bugbear of mine first, and then I'll get on to answering it about wind. We don't, coming back to that point of total cost of ownership or total life cycle analysis, we don't share that data with the existing energy sources that we have. So fossil fuels, we externalize a lot of the impacts. We don't take it as a holistic point of view. So in that sense, we're not sharing enough data fully around the energy sources that we need to that we use today. And as alternative energy sources come into the equation, it's likely that we won't be sharing as much data as we need to be there. But from a wind perspective, we have 39 large vessels, so about 2.5 million deadweight tons of shipping. And one of the issues is we're actually quite good at sharing the data at a design level, at a naval architecture level. So there's quite a lot of interchange with the data there. The problem is when we get to the market, is having aggregated and anonymized data that is protective of IP and protective of the business cases for some of our providers. That's less easy at the moment, right at this moment. It's getting better, but we do need to have more of that recycled data coming in. And we're looking to double potentially treble the number of ships that are installed this year over the next 12 months. And we're starting to get to that, how can I say, that tipping point where we can aggregate that data. So in a bulker, say at a certain size, we have 3 to 5 ships operating at that size with different technologies. But yes, I mean, there is a, how can I say, there's a reluctance, but that barrier is coming down now.
Okay, good to know that. Okay, Peter, so the same question to you, not on the wind, but general data sharing. And okay, maybe let me try to get it right. First question on the reluctance or the willingness to share data, whatever data that is not proprietary on intellectual property and so on. Yeah?
Yeah, I think we're kind of solving this, and I can see in the last 2 years really the industry coming together, because the job scope is insurmountable otherwise, and even for the strongest market participants, they can't do it alone. That's a realization. So also competitors are sitting together. And we have also, as one of the questions, there has always been that tendency to wait for regulations to kick in. We do not have that time, and the leading market participants have realized that. So basically it's time for the stakeholders to sit together, and one of the crucial things is exchange of data. So while NDAs are in place and so on, these are all things that are easily manageable. And what is driving a lot of the owners and managers is, of course, also the need for a meaningful ESG report, right? So that is something in the first 1 or 2 years is probably more general statements, but then juicy projects have to be in there and they have to present it. Otherwise, charterers, clients will probably no longer support you as an operator, right? And that is one of the main drivers, because, for example, you have to report your Scope 3 emissions, and you also have to find quantifiable ways to mitigate emissions, just to give one example.
So is it fair for me then to interpret that there's not enough momentum to regulate and standardize data collections and harmonization that Francis spoke about?
I think it's an industry effort. Who should do it for us, right?
Where's IMO SecGen?
No, I don't think it's a job of IMO is supporting in many ways, but it's not their job.
Yeah, so it's anybody's jobs and everybody's jobs, but maybe it's nobody's job. Yeah. Gavin, you wanted to say something? No, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something, around this data is, and I think we've heard this over the last couple of days. We've got to be very careful that, all of the digitalization, the AI, the machine learning, if that isn't good data going in, if we're putting bad data in, we get bad results. So, the support and the cleaning of that data is incredibly important. So I would rather see us going slightly slower, but being really certain that we're getting the right results. And I think Susanna brought up the whole point around integration, is we're not just dropping fuels into an existing system. We've really got to integrate all of these systems together, and understanding the sophistication of where that data is coming from, what the criteria we're using to assess that data with, and then applying it properly. Otherwise, we simply don't have time to go down a dead-end street anymore. That time is past. We have to be very sure we're on the right pathway with the right data and the right results.
So I get it, you're saying don't rush, but things are moving.
Yeah, more speed, less haste, I guess.
Yep.
Or the other way around. I can never remember that.
Yes, go ahead, Susanna.
Would also like to add a point that we're focusing very much in solutions that are applicable for ship owners for the fleets that they own. We have to also look that a very large part of shipping, not only there's about, I think the average is 4.1 vessels per ship owner. There will be tonnage providers. How do we incentivize not only for the data sharing? They might not have access to technologies that are as advanced, but also how operators like Swire Shipping and Swire Bulk can incentivize those tonnage providers to actually adopt energy efficiency technology. And obviously, it starts with data sharing. It is the first part. And in order for a ship owner to assess if a new technology, wind or not, could be a design-focused technology, it could be an engine improvement, it could be a digital technology, you need to really have an idea of what the payback period is going to be for that particular technology. And that is another gap that we have. As Gavin has pointed out, anonymizing data when there's so many little projects still going on, even in different technologies that are a little bit more conventional, I don't want to say conventional, innovative still, but a little bit less common, there is just not enough platforms, formal platforms to share the savings that these technologies have in different types of vessels, in different sized vessels. And I think that this also does not enable the full potential that data collection and digitalization could have in shipping. So it is really, really important to look at the whole picture that is not just about what an owner can do to their ships, because that is the easy part. The difficult part is what can an owner do when it does not get paid for installing, for example, new technology, because their charter rates are based on market outlooks and not exactly on how efficient your vessel is.
Thank you, Susanna. Mr. Yue, over to you. Okay, as a classification society, we have access to a lot of data that we do not own. Yeah, we are bound by a lot of constraints that we want to share, but we can't share. I mean, I'm coming from the perspective also as a classification society. What is your take on how you can harness the data that you have while respecting the boundaries where we operate?
Actually, I think classification societies do not intend to own the data. And we only deal with the data that have safety concern. So I think we can establish trust under some frameworks to share that. I add a word to the discussions previously you have. And I think there might be a point that let the stakeholders in the chain willing to share the data. The key point is where they can get from the other data. So we can establish a profit chain for that. I think it's very important. Regulation may make worse, but it's not all.
Okay, thank you for that. Mindful of time, we're in the last 3 minutes before the trapdoor beneath us opens. Okay, these questions, I guess I will just run through all the panelists from the audience. What are the, in your view, what are the biggest blockers to digitalization in the maritime industry? Question one, and how do we overcome that? Very briefly, mindful of time, starting with you, Peter.
Yeah, it's the silo building of our fragmented industry.
Silo?
And and the real disruptor is eventually connectivity. And we see a lot of advances there. Starlink now on 12,000 vessels, more and more to come. Not only a right for the seafarers, but also changing the operations ship to shore. So that will revolutionize also the way how we can transform and transport data and deal with it. So that's a real disruptor.
Okay. Mr. Yue?
I think the standard and the ecosystem for that. Ecosystem and the standard for that is the big block.
Okay. Prof. Chan, the same question. What is the biggest blocker to digitalization and how do we overcome that, in your view?
So for me, it will be the sharing of data, still limiting it, and also perhaps the the lack of platforms to demonstrate that it really could work, it really could be effective. And so the sooner we get there, the better it will be. Yeah.
Gavin.
I agree with that. No,
That's
but I'm gonna add one. No, I think standards, getting out of our silos, getting the data out of the silos. But I want to add one more, which is really important at the IMO level as well, which is the equitable transition and the digital divide. We've got to be incredibly careful as we move forward that we don't leave large sectors of LDCs, SIDs, small operators behind. We have a great opportunity for them to harness this, but we've got to keep the door open there. And we always hear a level playing field. We've got to keep that level playing field open for all stakeholders within this industry. So that's a potential barrier that we're coming up against.
Okay, on behalf of the 70% of the shipping, I thank you for that. Susanna, I'm sure you represent 30% of the shipping.
Very quickly, I just want to make a bit more positive points instead of just looking at blockers. I recently sailed with one of our vessels from Port Klang to Singapore, and I am now suggesting that we should have work from home, work from office, work from ship. We had Starlink, I had Teams, I had a normal day of work from the ship. It was really, really fantastic to see how Starlink has changed. The other thing that I want to leave out there that is not a blocker, it's for me an immense opportunity. I'm a very, very keen sailor, and SailGP, that was last year here in Singapore, collects 300,000 data points per second from 125 sensors. This is our future, high-frequency data from the vessel that is independent from what the crew is implementing. It is really where it's going to go. So instead of a blocker, an enabler.
Okay, thank you very much. It's really heartening and enlightening to learn from my learned panelists. And of course, as I said, we will eventually move to cleaner fuel. But in the meantime, we should continue to push ahead with technology, with digitalization, leverage on it as we move towards decarbonization. Can I invite everyone to put their hands together to really thank my fellow learned panelists? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Koh, and all our distinguished panelists for the insightful and engaging discussion. Could we take a group photo before you take your leave, please? If you could move closer together for the photo, that would be great. Yes, no problem. Thank you once again. May I invite you to kindly return to your seats.